Hello, my name is Louisa Ha. I'm a professor in the School of Media Communication and an advertising major advisor. I know many of you are in this class, MDI A2640, maybe advertising major or minor. And if you have any questions about advertising major, you are more than welcome to contact me for questions. And for minor, you can contact Dr. Yong Ju for questions. And I was invited by your instructor to talk about the topic on digital advertising clutter in the nature of mobile media. And it was based on my book chapter on the topic. And I've researched advertising clutter for a long time. And so I would begin my lecture with an introduction about the topic. So I'm going to share screen with you about the PowerPoint file. Okay, you should be able to see the screen. Is about digital advertising clutter in the age of mobile media. So what is advertising clutter? Advertising clutter is defined as a difficult media environment. It's a situation that we see the advertising is unwanted, undesirable, and excessive in an editorial medium that we are consuming, and it interfere with the consumption of the editorial content we are watching or reading. The research on advertising clutter started since late 1970s and focused on TV advertising clutter. And more recent research is about the clutter in self-paced media like magazines and also in online media. What are the reasons for advertising clutter? The main reason for advertising clutter are three. One is the overall negative attitude towards advertising in general for some people. They just don't like advertising. They just think that it's manipulative, persuasive. They don't like it. And there's also a high demand for advertising in popular media content. Because, for example, like Super Bowl or popular primetime TV series, people want to watch it and there's a large audience for it, and advertisers like to reach the large audience. So they would demand and want to put the advertisement in those programs. And so they can charge a high price, and also they can also run a lot of advertisement. So when there are a lot of advertisement, then of course you feel annoyed. And finally, there's some tension between advertisers and consumers. Advertisers want you to watch the ads, but consumer didn't want to watch the ads. They want to watch the editorial content. So there's inherent tension between advertisers and consumers. In my research, I propose that advertising clutter actually consists of three dimensions. When you talk about clutter, actually, we may refer to different dimensions or all three. The first is quantity. Quantity is the number of advertisement or how many advertisements are there, which also include the frequency as well. So the large number of advertisement would make us feel cluttered and hard to handle. Another type of dimensions is competitiveness, which include how competitive, how similar is the products involved in the advertisements. For example, if all the ads are about automobile brands, automobile makes like Honda, Toyota, Hyundai, Nissan, and then GM brands like Buick or something, then well, we kind of get confused and we may not remember which is which. The third one is intrusiveness, is how much we believe and feel the ads are intruding our consumption of the media content. So, for example, if the advertisement is in a break, within a minute to two, then you get another commercial. unexpectedly, then you feel intrusive. There are different approaches about advertising clutter effects. There are three approaches. One is a structural approach, which I will explain how structurally the advertiser can increase or decrease the clutter level. The information processing approach is how do we process advertisement as information? And the third approach is the goal impediment functional approach. So this diagram is showing the different ways that advertising clutter is being processed. If we use the first approach is the structural approach, is what are the physical attributes that determine the presence of clutter. The first is how much it is considered, how much intrusiveness is the ad in the consumption. So first of all, is the interruption that advertiser can choose to put, for example, what kind of editorial content that they can put, whether it is something relevant to the product or not relevant to the product. So for example, when you see a fashion magazine, and if you are like Hollister or other apparel brand, Eddie Bauer, and you end advertising those, is basically is matching really well about the content. People who are reading the content, they like to have different clothing and apparel. So if they see the ad, they don't see any interruption. They see it as part of the content, so they can accept it very easily. But if you are putting some other ads, so for example, a bank advertisement in a fashion magazine, then they won't be appropriate or relevant to those people who are enjoying fashion apparel. And so probably most likely they would be seen as interruption. The second factor to consider is time delay. Whether you have to immediately consume the ad or you can wait or choose when you want to consume the ad. So in some situation, you can have time delay. For example, in self-paced media, you can have time delay when you can choose to watch the ad, especially in a digital environment. You can choose to immediately see the content, and you can wait until later to watch the content. And location and size also make a difference. If they're a big advertisement covering half of the screen, of course, the size is big and also the location is prominent, you can see it. But I think it's also people would feel very interrupted when you have the ad. And second consideration is the frequency that we put on the ad. Because if we put a lot of times to show the ad, like one day we show 4 or 5 times, then it will create information overload situation that people could not process so many ads at one time. So it's also information overload situation. It's not just one advertisement, but also many different advertisers add together, create the information overload. So these all add together is what we call the represented clutter on content. It's a media center analysis that is the media from media perspective. How clutter is being formed is how they put the advertisement together. However, as I said, there's just two other approaches. One is what we call the information processing approach. Is we look at the advertisement with different memory and attention and attitude based on execution and everything. And then we'll process the ad. And we pay attention to the ad and we like the ad, and maybe we have memory, then maybe we don't see as clutter. But if we don't see it that way, then we would see it as clutter. If we don't like the ad, we did not pay attention and see overwhelming, then we would see it as clutter. So the perception of clutter is from a user perspective, the perception, rather than the actual clutter level. No matter how high or how low, if you have a different memory and attitude attention towards the ad, then you have a different perception of the clutter. And then finally is the functional approach, or what we call the goal impediment. Because the assumption is that when people have a goal in consuming the content, and when you're interrupting with advertisement, then you would create a high clutter level. So the relevance is the important factor that determine whether it is functional or not, the ad. First of all, attitudes towards advertising in general. If you don't see advertisement as something useful for your life, and you would probably not seeing it relevant. And of course, any advertisement, even one ad, you consider as clutter. And also the general media context that is being put, the advertisement also create the functional approach. If the media context is not relevant to the consumer, for example, the person is watching a TV show and then some commercial unexpected coming up, which interrupt the viewing, then they will also see a clutter. And finally, task orientations also make a difference. If you are working and trying to find information, have a clear, specific goal what you want to do with the content online in particular, then if the ad come up, which is irrelevant to you, then you won't want to see it. But if the ad is useful to you because you're trying to find information about products, then it would be considered not as clutter. However, if you are searching something and there's some irrelevant ad coming to you, then it will consider impeding your goal of finding the information you need. It will be considered a high clutter level. On the other hand, if you have a task that is more leisure and entertainment situation, then probably uh, you don't see it as clutter because you don't mind having some additional information, unexpected, maybe a surprise would be a good thing, a pleasant to enjoy, commercial or advertisement, then the clutter level will be considered low. So it really depends on the situation. And finally, we need to look at the user control in the process. There are different forms of advertisement and different forms of user control. For example, in online ads, you can have pop-up ads suddenly pop up on your screen when you click on the content. And in that situation, you have no control as a user. You'll just suddenly encounter the ad and have to finish the ad before you can move on. So it's a no control situation. Actually, digital advertisement can do that, can kind of lock everything up until you finish the ad. Unlike TV commercial, then you can just ignore it. But basically, it's hard to ignore in those situations. And the other thing is a captive situation that, for example, you can have a pre-roll ad that you have to watch the commercial before the actual video, but there's still a choice for you to skip it or kind of ignore it in a sense. There's also something called pop under that they also pop an ad after you click on something, but it is not something. You consume the content first and then you saw the ad. So it's called pop under. Finally, it's a self-paced advertisement that is like banners that you can put on a web page or a paid sponsor links. So these different control also would affect how these represent the clutter on kind of structural design and the perceived clutter is being put. So this is maybe the same ad, but it will have different result. So overall effects of the advertising clutter actually is starting from the structural level that you actually put the ad and then how people perceive it, and this is how the effect will look like. With this advertising clutter, if they are perceived as high advertising clutter, then people would avoid it, try to avoid it as advertising avoidance, or they would have a lower memory of the ad because they get confused or they don't want to remember, they resist remembering it, or they also have lower perceived of the quality of the editorial content. Like if your TV program have too much commercials or the magazine too many advertisements, they may see that your quality is not that good or may lower the perceived credibility of the content to commercialize. So there are three major types of clutter effects that we can group together. First is the memory of the advertisement. We call it the connective effect because it affects your connection. It's whether you remember the ad and the brand. The second is affective effects, is the attitudes towards the advertising or attitude towards the split ad and the brand, and perceived editorial quality and enjoyment of media content. Because it makes us not like the advertising, not like the magazine, not like the brand, which is the attitude and emotional effect on advertising. There's also behavioral effect with the advertising clutter because people would tend to avoid the advertising because they feel overwhelmed or they don't like it. And they resist it with the reactants. They feel that their freedom is being violated by the advertising. So let me explain a little bit about different digital advertising clutter in different ad format, more detail. So there are three types of online advertising, interactive advertising. One is search engine advertising and how it relates to competitiveness. So let's look at this first one. So this is the Google advertisement. And you can soon see that Google advertisement is different from other because they basically show like a search listing result. They just have the ad logo in it. So you say that, well, when you search cruise, for example, this is what you get in the results. And so that is how it in fact affect the ranking of the listing. And you can see they post the advertisement first so that, well, you could be able to read it first before you see the organic search result. These are called organic search result like this one. It's based on the relevance and an algorithm of Google search engine. So Carnival Cruise Line has the most relevant content probably by the algorithm standard of Google. So they put the rank as the number one if it's just normally without the sponsor ad. But with sponsor ad, then it may change. But luckily, Carnival also, as a brand, they don't want to lose the chance of getting the competitors pay the ad that they would be put on top. So they are first on. They also pay the ad on top, so that either organic or inorganic result they are on the top. So that's how advertisers why they need to still pay the search engine because they don't want the competitors take away the spot in the advertising. So the competitiveness is high, but search engine advertising, we know that everybody would be the same category, otherwise it won't be shown here. So, but because people who are searching at that time, they want to see product information, probably the more competitor, the better to the consumer. There are more choices. So that's a different story to consider. The second type is the banners. The banners, that's another thing that we have to consider is called banner blindness effects. Banner blindness effects means that people are blind to the banners, even though there's advertising banners on the page, but we just turn away to it, ignore it, or just did not see it, overlook it, because we just focus so much on content that the advertisement is nothing to us. So let's look at this here, the Toledo Blade advertisement here. So how many ads do you see? How many banners do you see? You may only see one, or maybe none, okay? The most obvious probably is this one, which is on top near the title of the newspaper. This is a ProMedica advertisement. But actually there are five. Let's look at the five. This is the first one. The second one is the blade itself to promote self-promotion to encourage people to subscribe to the blade. The third one is this advertisement about Rich Hire to encourage people to upload resume on it. And then this is one is the First Energy is talk about the as an energy company talk about the source of clean energy. And finally, it's also this one is a Beltone hearing aid ad. But if I don't point out to you specifically, probably I don't think that you get all five. So that's the blindnesses that we have. If the one that you catch your eyes probably is more successful, is the one that's not not blind to it, and most likely due to the position of the ad. And since it's a static ad, so you don't see any difference. But if there is some motion like animation, maybe also that make a difference as well. The third type of advertisement, digital advertising clutter, is for pre-roll or mid-roll commercials in online videos. Most of the online videos for YouTube are short, so pre-roll advertising will be most appropriate because it's only 2 or 3 minutes. Then the commercial is better to be put at the beginning rather at the end, which is more likely to be overlooked. So what YouTube do is they have the skip ad commercials that you can, this is called True View. Actually, they call this True View, that you can click on it and then the commercial can be stopped, as you know. And this is a way that they could let consumers kind of have a choice, but also maintain that at least you look at 5 seconds before you move on. So that's a compromise between YouTube in terms of the forcing you to watch the ad, but not making you too angry by having to give you a choice. And this advertisement is about the Wix website. So it's quite interesting. And so That's how, if you like it, you can continue to watch it. If you don't, that's fine. Another type is commercial that actually you have to finish watching it before, close the app before you can watch anything else. It's another way that YouTube force you to watch the commercial. So there are two types, and of course they charge differently to the advertisers. All right. So in order to reduce advertising clutter perception and help the situation, first of all, we have to measure the editorial unit. How much is the editorial unit, and that decide on the clutter level. So it varies by the display of device of the digital advertising. In particular, the size of the screen is a big difference, especially in digital advertising. You don't know what size of the screen would it be. It may be a mobile device like a phone or iPad, bigger, or maybe a computer or even smart TV. But the basic principle is that the first visible screen is the most important area for advertisers because many people don't scroll down, unfortunately. So if you don't show it on the first screen, most likely it will not be seen by the consumer. So first visible screen is always the prime thought you want to do in advertising. And how much you can keep it, how much you want to keep the space is an issue. So for measuring the quantity dimension of digital advertising clutter, you can use the following as a measure. One is the proportion of the ads to the screen in terms of size, the proportion. Another is the proportion of the commercial link to the online video link, especially if you have video commercials. And also number of ads and sponsored links if you are doing a banner ads or something like the sponsor links of search engines. So the second dimension is advertising clutter competitiveness. So how do you do it? So competitiveness, you can make sure the similarities of the product category in the list are relevant. And you know that they would be similar, especially if search engine. So then the ad context congruity is very important. It may favor similar product categories and choices to users, just like I mentioned that earlier, is that if you are a magazine advertisement on websites, for clothing, then if you're doing clothing brand, that would be considered as relevant. But if you are not, you are doing something else like banks or something that another multiple of them, then it will create confusion because they are not relevant that people don't want to process it. So ad context incongruity can exacerbate the negative effects of advertising. Another issue is about intrusiveness, the third dimension, how to measure that. First of all, whether you choose a false exposure type of display or exposure by choice, like a skippable ad versus a mandatory pre-roll ads would be different. If you use a choice like not a pre-roll ad, but skippable ad, probably you get less perception intrusiveness, but also probably less visibility because people don't watch it. So there's a compromise you have to decide. And then also the advertisement can be totally blocked, like a pre-roll ad, or actually the whole ad, the pop-up ads that cover the whole screen, or partial block. That means that the editorial content is still showing on, while at the bottom of the screen or the top of the screen have a banner or something, some sort of a display, a scrolling display. Or you can have ads that have no block of editorial content, just let people finish and then you show an ad. And of course, this is the least intrusive, but also probably the least effective as well. So mobile media allows you to enhance the level of ad content congruity in this digital age. And in particular, smartphone, because of a lot of the data and capability, it is a very useful device. So we can utilize the following at least 12 information easily from your smartphone. We know the user's location, so we can target the location to advertise. The time to display the ad, whether in the morning, afternoon, whatever. User profile, user interest, user preference, user behavior, they are all logged in the smartphone if they have the app that they would be able to tell. The user demos, what are the demographics, especially register for the account, register for the phone, that you have all these things. The weather, because you know the weather, so you know the weather, and then you can actually push the appropriate weather related ad. The surrounding of the person who are doing, like they're surrounded by schools or stores or something, the type of device that they're using, because what they can tell them what the browser is and what it is, and then the need of the user, because they can, by typing on the search, for example, then you show your need and the activity that you have done in the advertisement, in the on the phone as well. So this is an example of a mobile campaign by McDonald's. It is a sweepstakes, as you can see, that people can click launch to start the deal, steal the deal on the screen. And then actually it's kind of a game that played that someone is a thief trying to um, get the prize, and you are the player and you try to get it faster than them. And if you get faster than them, then you want the free prize and get a coupon. So it's almost like a game, but it's a very easy thing that fun and easy thing that for entice people to get interested in McDonald's and want to get, because you get a fry. Of course, you don't just get a fry, probably you'll buy a drink and other thing. So it's a really good way to entice consumers to buy to go to McDonald's. It is another one by New York Times. The New York Times is about kind of a college in Illinois. It's a kind of college tuition loan, and so this is an ad that right at beneath the New York Times logo, title logo, and then people would most likely can see this, and then they click on it and they will see the ad on what to do, and they fill in the form. They immediately take actions. So it's another way that you can do advertisement that is very timely and people can react to it right away on the phone. So the future of digital advertising clutter research, well, we have to understand that there's a difference between push and pull advertising. Push advertising are the advertisement that we try to find, did not try to find it. It's just come to us. We passively receive those, and usually we have the most negative reaction to those because we don't expect, we don't want it. But pull advertising is different. Pull advertising is people want the advertisement. They, by typing the information, this product search, for example, type the product name or the brand or something, category. So they want the advertisement. So when they type the search and they want it, then it would be likely that they would be very welcome and process the ad. So how to make people willing to pull and use advertisement, we have to develop more ways to encourage people to tell us what they need, what they want right now, and then we can deliver those ads when they want it. Second is customization and invasion of privacy. Well, while we show all this potential that we can do advertisement on the mobile media, some people will see that it's invading privacy. Why do you need to know where I am? Why do you show me the ad at a time that I I may want it, but I don't want you to know that I want it? So this kind of invasion of privacy issue is something that you need to consider. Even though people may like customization, but they also worry about why people know so much about me, especially this particular company, advertiser. So we need to develop a hierarchy of relevance and acceptable customization. Sometimes people don't mind the location, but they would mind other, like your name or some other very specific information about you. There's also blurring boundaries between advertisements and editorial content, something what we call native advertising, and they are usually called sponsored content. When you see the newsfeed on your Facebook or Instagram or something, so these are the content that look like any post that you saw on social media, but actually these are written by maybe journalists or maybe by advertising agency to make it look like the newsfeed that you receive from other editorial content provider. But then you kind of mix up whether this real re-ad or not ad, because some people may not pay attention to this sponsored content. And product placement is another way, like you can put Coke in the commercial as part of the prop, or you can also put a pear pad, which is everyone knows that is Apple iPad in it. So to show that the product is very popular, being used, and how it's being used in daily life. And finally, we have to optimize the advertising environment by providing information and entertainment value to the consumers and educate the consumers on receiving the ads in return for free service because advertising is integral to media consumption. So you want to make consumers willing to see the advertisement, and also advertising should create a good environment for audience to process the advertisement so that it won't be annoying. Actually, it's something welcome in part of the process. So thank you very much, and I hope that you enjoyed this presentation and also like this situation. Thank you very much, and hope to see you soon. If any questions, you can always reach me at Louisa Ha uh, and LOUISAH at bgsu.edu. Thank you, and have a good day, and enjoy your class.